street that's part of the Weavers Chase development. Again, the rougher grassed area at the centre of the site is the site we're looking at today. And then this is a view from the open space of the Weavers Chase development, which shows the fairly challenging topography at the south end of the application site, where it meets the new retaining walls of new properties on the Weavers Chase, in the Weavers Chase development, beg your pardon. There is a watercourse running at the bottom of this dip in the land that is partially coveted and then continues eastwards beneath these historic mill buildings. This is a view from within this application site looking south at new homes within the Weavers Chase development. This is a view from the west looking east towards the application site, but in the centre of the site you can see new properties being built as part of the Weavers Chase development. This is the view from the end of Thorpe Green Drive. And this is the site's frontage to Parkwood Road, where there is an existing pedestrian entrance to the site. There is a significant drop in levels along the site's northeast edge behind the Parkwood Mills residential development. Further southeast from this photo, the drop forms a bare rock face of a former quarry. The site forms the northeast part of a wider site allocation HS 148 for residential development. The indicative site capacity stated in the site allocation is for 125 residential units. Land to the northeast of the site is within the Longwood Edge Conservation Area, and the application site I'm just highlighting here with the arrow is directly to the south of the conservation area. This is the approved layout of the Weavers Chase development, and again I'm highlighting here where the current application site is. This is the Weavers Chase development is a residential development of 96 units under construction at the moment. The current application site would be edged by private residential curtilages and open space. The open space follows the east-west dip across the site, as I'm highlighting here with the arrow. The Weavers Chase development has two vehicular accesses, one from Thorpe Green Drive and one from Grange Road, both of which connect to Laymore Road. And this is the junction of Thorpe Green Drive and Laymore Road. So as far as the proposed development is concerned, 27 units are proposed. They will be a mix of semi-detached, detached and detached dwellings with one short terrace of dwellings proposed around a new estate road running the length of the site, off which private drives are proposed. Open space is proposed around the south and northeast edges of the site, and a new footpath would run through this and connect to the Weavers Chase open space. A mix of 1, 2, 3 and 4 bedroom units is proposed. Vehicular access is proposed from the east-west road within the Weavers Chase development, which in turn connects to Thorpe Green Drive. You've seen the junction on an earlier slide. This road is already due to take the traffic of 73 units of the Weavers Chase development. The other 23 would be accessed via Grange Road. Only a pedestrian access is proposed off Parkwood Road at the north end of the site. Two-storey dwellings with pitched roofs are proposed. Artificial stone elevations with natural stone detailing are proposed, along with concrete roof tiles. Some dwellings would have garages either attached or integral. 5 affordable housing units are proposed. This represents an 18.5% provision, falls slightly short of the 20% requirement of policy LP 11 due to rounding. Following recent amendments, all units would comply with the government's nationally described residential space standards. Drainage proposals involve on-site attenuation and connection to existing drains to the southeast. In terms of assessment of the proposals, the principle of development and the proposed land use is considered acceptable. The site is allocated for residential development and that site allocation carries full weight. The number of units proposed, 27, is considered appropriate for this site. With 96 units being built at the adjacent site, there will be a shortfall of 2 units against the site's indicative capacity. However, this is considered minor and acceptable given the constraints of the site. At 18.5% provision, the 5 affordable housing units are considered acceptable. Their locations are considered acceptable. I will just pan back to the site layout just to explain where they are proposed. These two units, 9 and 10, a pair of semis, and these three units, 11, 12 and 13, the short terrace of houses, are where the affordable housing units are proposed. So they would not be evenly spread around the site, but in the context of a 27 unit scheme, the distribution around the site is considered acceptable. The highways impacts of an additional 27 units using Thorpe Green Drive and onto Laymore Road are considered acceptable. Relevant junctions have capacity for this additional traffic. Adequate parking is proposed within the development. Good pedestrian connectivity and permeability is proposed, and it is recommended that a minor outstanding issue regarding sweat paths can be addressed at condition stage. The proposed open space locations are considered acceptable. However, due to shortfalls in certain open space typologies in the proposed development and locally in Golka Ward, a financial contribution of £12,273 towards off-site provision is considered necessary. Neighbouring amenity impacts are considered acceptable. A suitable drainage strategy has been proposed, and outstanding concerns are minor, have been addressed in the most recent flood risk assessment or can be addressed at condition stage. Design and conservation considerations have been adequately addressed. The proposed development would be similar in its grain, massing, typologies, street layout and materials to the Weavers Chase development. The proposals would not have an unacceptable impact upon the setting of adjacent heritage assets and have not attracted an objection from the Council's conservation and design team. There is, however, a strong objection to the proposals from the Council's biodiversity officer regarding bats. The applicant's ecologist has carried out only 3 site surveys in August and September, whereas good practice guidance directs that surveys throughout the spring, summer and autumn should be carried out and that static recording equipment should be used. The applicant's limited survey work has confirmed that the site is visited by nocturnal and common pipistrelle bats, which isn't surprising given previous surveys for the adjacent site and given that the site has a lot of features attractive to bats: mature trees, historic buildings, water bodies, dark areas and a rough area of grass at the north end of the site, and some of those features are in adjacent land. However, the Council's biodiversity officer has stated that this limited survey work doesn't provide adequate information as to how the site is used by bats. Members will be aware that all bats are protected by law and that there are important indicator species which illustrate the general health and biodiversity interest of sites. Yorkshire Wildlife Trust have also objected to the proposal on biodiversity grounds. Officers have considered asking the applicant to delete the 10 units at the north end of the site, which is roughly shown in this red area on this slide, and that translates roughly to that area on the site layout. This is the area that's of most interest to bats. It's a darker area, rougher grass, adjacent mature trees provide habitats potentially, or at least places for bats to visit when foraging, and to then recommend the approval of only the other 17 units towards the centre and the south of the site. The applicant could then come back next year with a further application for that part of the site once adequate surveys have been carried out. However, in light of the borough-wide pressing need for housing, Officer's recommendation is for approval of the 27 unit scheme, subject to a Section 106 agreement securing planning obligations as per paragraph 10.77 of the committee report and the recommended conditions. 3 objections have been received by local residents and members of the public. These relate to trees impacts towards the north end of the site. Those concerns have been addressed, we believe, by the movement of units 6 and 7 away from the site boundary. Other concerns relate to rock falls from the former quarry face along the northeast edge of the site. Those concerns haven't been addressed by the applicant. However, it's not recommended that planning permission be withheld for those reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, we have one speaker, John Dunbavin, who's the agent.
Thank you, you, Chair. I don't want to repeat the officer's report. I'd just like to offer ourselves up to answer any members' questions if there are any.
That's not the way we work. You have to give us your, I would assume in this case, support, and then my panel will discuss it, or they'll give their submissions and then vote.
Well, as I say, Chair, we haven't prepared a speech. We didn't want to repeat what's in the officer's report. If I could just comment on the bat issue, if you like. Our ecologist went out and did a survey earlier in the year and recommended that we carry out 3 surveys. They recommended we carry out surveys in April to May, June to August and September to October, so 1 in each period. Due to contractual issues that were occurring in terms of trying to get the land optioned up, we couldn't move forward with April and May, but we did get surveys in in the June to August period and in September to October. And what those surveys show is that the bats are using the west and eastern boundary to commute, and they are foraging in the trees on those boundaries. Those trees are being retained. We're not going to affect those commuting or foraging routes, and there are actually no bat roosts on site. The test here for ecology is, do you have sufficient information to make a decision in relation to this application? Officers clearly think you do. It's not perfect information, but there is sufficient information to make a decision. And we'd ask you to support the officer recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Right, members. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, in principle, I'm not in disagreement of it. The issue with the bat survey is a problem. It's not just that. Further information has been requested in regards to the rockfall, climate change and dementia-friendly design, none of which I believe have been submitted. The whole idea of a bat survey is that the cycle is continuous, and although 2 have been submitted, the issue is with the northern end of this site. So I'm just wondering what would be the possibility of deferring this application and looking for a bat survey and looking for this application to be listed at a future meeting when we have the bat survey, the climate change information and the dementia-friendly design.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, John.
I think Sheik's summed the situation up very well. So if he's making if he's moving a proposal to defer, I'd support it. Have you moved a motion to defer it?
Sorry, defer on the basis of the bat survey for the 10 units at the northern end of the application. Yeah.
I mean, there was a further suggestion that we give permission for the 17 that's not affected, but
That's
the other 10 in abeyance.
I think that's what Sheik meant to say.
That's fine. That's
we
fine.
both agree,
That's fine.
and we're not disagreeing.
So that's been moved and seconded,
Yeah.
has it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, Chair. Just.
So, do you want to?
Through you, Chair, if I understand this correctly, it's the deferral is potentially to ask the applicants if they would omit the 10 units from the northern end of the site at this stage and move forward with the 17 unit part of the site because of the issues to do with bats. Is that right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
All those in favour, please show.
So, 8-4.
Against? One against.
Items deferred.
Page 51, Highgate Lane, Lepton, The Sun, which we haven't seen today.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Neil Bearcroft and I've acted as case officer on this application. The application seeks to retain a seating area and equipped play area associated with the Sun Public House in Lepton. The proposal was previously heard at the December subcommittee last year, where it was given a temporary permission to operate between 9 AM and 8 PM, with additional signage to be erected around the area, and also in submission of a noise management plan, which was subsequently approved. The current application seeks to extend the hours of use from 9 AM to 9:30 PM, but has also omitted the noise management plan that was approved as part of the temporary permission. The site forms a piece of land to the north of the pub. This map is orientated south at the top, so it's the area here below the pub, and there it's surrounded by residential properties. So there's residential properties on Rowley Lane. Here there's properties on Sycamore Close. Here there's two there. Then there are other properties on Highgate Avenue further to the bottom part. The application site was seen by members earlier today, and here are some photographs of the site. This is the area as it is at the moment. I think they are. Okay. So that's the site area that I was discussing. The pub there at the top end, properties on Rowley Lane, Sycamore Avenue down there, and then other properties further at the bottom part. So this is how the site looks at the moment. Picture from earlier in the year. The work's already commenced and been completed. Those are the properties on Highgate Avenue. That's on Highgate Lane. I think it's part of the shop. And then that's looking back on Rowley Lane. So there's a seating area, crazy golf, and a play area. So members of a full and detailed committee report in front of them, and I would draw their attention to the update where there's been a further representation received in objection, setting out there's been 25 instances of disturbances for the local residents since June 2019. The key consideration with the application is the impact on local residential amenity. After the temporary permission was granted, complaints were received by environmental services in July, August and September. Environmental Services have also formally objected to this application, and there have been 7 objections received to the planning application. It is also noted there are comments in support. Richard Hume is here from Environmental Services, who can discuss the complaints that have been received and answer any specific issues in relation to potential noise disturbance. While mitigation measures are included in the temporary permission, there remains concerns that for a permanent permission there'll be ongoing a noise problem from the operation of the play area and the garden. The proximity to unconnected residential properties, taken together with the equipped nature of the play area, its relative size, could result in large groups of people gathering, engaging in high intensive activities. This could create harmful noise generation that will be detrimental to residential amenity of adjacent properties, and it is not considered that the mitigation measures tested as part of the temporary permission have sufficiently addressed this concern. The application is therefore recommended for refusal and contrary to policy LP 52 and Chapter 12 of the MPPF. Just a second reason for refusal is also included on highways grounds, because permission is currently extant for a side extension at the pub where this area was to be used for a car park, and this development would block that, so that forms a second reason for refusal. As I say, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
We have 2 speakers. We have Melvin Morale, who objects to the application.
So, thank you for Chair, Council members, for allowing me to put our side of the argument rather than Sorry, I'll start again. Thank you for the opportunity for our side of the argument put forward. Basically, I've written some notes. I'm dyslexic. I may make mistakes as I'm reading them out, but Here goes. My name is Melvin Rowe. Can I make it quite clear from the start that we're not objecting about the 300-year-old pub. We've got no qualms with the pub whatsoever, as was brought up on the last committee meeting that I came to. The problem we have is the noise generated within the play area, the beer garden and the crazy golf area. This area has only been open for less than 18 months, not 300 years. I moved in to Lepton after I'd been in the army for a while. My brother had a house in next door but one to where I live now. And he had that since it was new. I came to visit him, obviously. I came to stay there when I was on leave from the army. And after I left the army, in 1986, I moved into the area, knowing that it was a quiet residential area, that there was good facilities, including the pub, including the fish and chip shop at the bottom of my garden. Since then, this facility has been built as a cash-generating process for the pub, without any regards to the local, immediate local people, who have to suffer the noise for hours on end, and now they're wanting to extend it to 9:30, did I hear? Which, to me, is very unfair for the locals. In summer, we cannot have our windows and doors open to allow for a draft through. Once again, my main objective is the noise from the area. It has nothing to do with the pub. Thank you for your time, is basically all I can say. And I'm sorry for taking it up.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Donna Brayshaw, who is the applicant.
Good afternoon, Chair. I would like to point out the Kirklees Joint Health and Wellbeing Strategy for 2014 to 2020. The shared aim of this strategy is to combine great quality of life and a strong sustainable economy, leading to thriving communities and growing businesses, high prosperity and low inequality, and where people enjoy better health. Open spaces that encourage physical activity and support positive emotional well-being. An open space study in 2015 on behalf of Kirklees identified the provision of open spaces, parks and recreation grounds in our area falls short, and we believe our garden falls within this strategy. And as you can see from the examiner's story yesterday, the level of support shown clearly shows that the garden is wanted and appreciated by the majority of residents, with 75 supporting comments and 0 negative. Some of those supporting comments were our neighbours directly onto this garden. We do a lot for our community, and it's not all for monetary gain. Our library in our snug is used every day by members of the public, and this is obviously free. We plan to maintain flower beds and planters in the village square. We raise money for lots of local groups and causes. Our recent Halloween auction raised £1,000, over £1,000 for Lepton Scouts. We run the Neighbourhood Watch scheme with over 700 members. It is imperative that we change and adapt to keep the only community hub in our village alive. We have no community centre or council-run library. When we bought the pub 9 years ago, it was a run-down, dilapidated building. We have heavily invested in both the pub and the garden. We have created a safe, family-friendly area away from the main road with no impact on traffic or highway consideration. Our focus is for community cohesion, togetherness and the well-being of our village. And with this, we hope that you will pass this application. Thank you.
Members. Councillor McGuinn. Then Councillor Sokol and then Councillor Fuller.
I did say at the beginning of the meeting I've been lobbied by people who are for it, people who are against it. I've talked to the landlady and landlord about it. It was difficult for me to speak up last time when it came. I left it to other members to speak, if you remember, because I felt it was so close to the when it was opened, and I didn't feel as though I should say something. Well, I think I should say something now. The Sun Pub is basically the only the only facility, community facility in the village beside the churches. It's a very important community hub. Mrs. Brayshaw has mentioned that they have a community library, for example. People can use that facility for free. We've got computers there that people could access the internet. The pub is a very important part of the community. I don't want to I want to stress that very much. Want to look at the area before the golf course was put in and the playground. It was derelict. There was nothing there. It was in a really bad condition. So what they've done is transform that area into a community facility. There is a need for facilities like this in Lepton because there's nowhere else. There's nowhere else for kids to go and play, really. It's very much a built-up area, and we're going to have more houses in the future. The local planners put forward approximately 900 houses. It's going to be more hemmed in and crammed in the future. There is a problem with parking. We'll grant you that, but that is not a reason to turn this down. I think what we need to do is if members could suggest suitable times for when the facility is available. I possibly agree that 9:30 is not. 9:30 at night is not a good time to be finishing up. I think you should finish it a bit earlier, and I will leave it for other members to come forward with suggestions about time. I think that we should support the Sun Pub. We should support the application, and unfortunately on this occasion we should go against the officer's recommendation. But I do understand why they put forward this recommendation. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, when we granted the application in last year in December for the trial period of 6 months, I spoke on this application for the benefit of to the community, and the benefit to the community provided by the pub. There is a library, a community hub, and other things. Very few pubs, and the community needed. But at the same time, when we granted the application, I said we have. It's our responsibility to look after the resident on the behind of the surrounding area. But 6 months we given them, we had some objection, no doubt at all. But I still feel like Councillor McGuire said, it's good for the community, I think I always the champion of the good neighborhood. If we look into the happening, defer it for a short period, but let the community and pub owners sit together to work out themselves and then come back and we grant the application. That's my views there.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm not going to obviously repeat everything that Bernard said, but I think we all agree that the pub is a vital asset for that community. Absolutely no doubt about that. It is a hub. There are Kirklees services that are operating from within that hub. Nobody's in the interest of removing play equipment for children. I'm certainly not. And for me, it's a fine balance. It's a really, really difficult decision to make. And there are highways grounds, and I understand how the officers have come to this decision. I do have a problem with the times, and that was that I brought that to the attention when it came to the committee 7 or 8 months ago. I think the times are a little bit. I think it's an unrealistic expectation of the times, and I think that they'd need to have a look at that if we were going to get any buy-in. But I don't know. I mean, Councillor Sokol has made a suggestion in the sense that is there capacity to look at the times and thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. I'd also like to echo the comments of fellow members in acknowledging what a great community hub this is. I do have concerns over the extended opening hours. I also have concerns over the planning permission in place for the extension. I think personally I would be much more comfortable maintaining the current opening times, and whether or not it would be possible to consider a extended temporary planning until the planning permission for the extension has expired, and then look to make it permanent after that point. I don't know if that's possible. That's okay? Yeah.
I think his contribution would be probably most helpful and useful for the committee.
Environmental health.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Richard Hume, Environmental Health Officer at Kirklees Council. We've objected to this application only on the grounds of the potential of noise. It introduces an intrinsically noisy activity that's very difficult to control and places it immediately adjacent to noise-sensitive premises, residential gardens. The times the facility will be used in warm weather, probably in the summer, are exactly the times when the local residents will be wanting to use their gardens. What they're going to be subjected to is noise from children at play, and obviously that's uncontrollable. Some children will play quietly, some won't. You've also got the crazy golf area, which obviously adults may play on as well. Once again, different people will play at you create different noise levels. There is a fence all the way around. I don't believe that will create an effective acoustic barrier. I've not looked at the fence, so I don't know how it's constructed, but the fact that some of the play area is elevated on a platform, so the noise source, the children's voices will be elevated, and also adults stood up around there, they'll be elevated, so the acoustic barrier will have a minimal effect on quite a lot of the occasions. So our conclusion is that the proposed development is not really appropriate for that location. Thank you, Chair.
Doesn't seem to have helped a lot. But Councillor Day.
Again, I'll not repeat what other people have said. I'm really conflicted on this one because having seen it today, I can see the work that's gone into it. We can see what the pub's trying to do. But I have to say, if I was a resident right next to that facility, I would be fairly concerned. And I think the size of the garden and the facilities within the garden, as you say, encourage that noise. So I'm certainly, I think like everybody else, not looking to close things down, but trying to find some way in which we can reduce that facility to some degree, reduce the noise, something that we can do. And I think certainly it's a very significant size as well. And that will encourage a large numbers of people, which obviously will contribute to the noise. So if there's something we can do to help, that would be good. But I do have real concerns on that.
Matthias, would you like to contribute?
Thanks, Chair. Thank you. It is a very difficult decision, this, and it is balanced because clearly there are benefits in the community, but there is clearly harm to the residents, and the mitigation that you've been put forward probably isn't going to deal with the issue adequately. Given where we are in the time of year and the fact that it isn't being used extensively, okay, so is there an opportunity to say, members are asking us again, is there anything that can be done? I'm not saying that there is anything that can be done, but let's go away and look at it with the applicants, with the specialists, and we will come back with if there was any suggestions at all. It may be that we can't find a solution, but we hear what the committee is saying.
Councillor Firth, you wish to come in, and then Councillor Ola.
Thank you, Chairman. I think really after seeing that this morning, it's a rather large garden and there is quite a lot of residential properties around that garden. And I can understand them fussing about the noise, because I think I will be the same. I think really it needs to go back to the drawing board and come up with some fresh ideas. I'm not saying destroy it altogether. It's a good thing. But the pub is not a community situation. The pub is a pub. The community can go into it, but it isn't run for the community. Or the community doesn't go there because there's a pub there. They go there. If you want to go there, you go there for a drink. It's a good idea, the garden. I fully support something like that. But at the end of the day, I think before anything's organised, it needs to go back to the drawing board. Not to knock it all together, but at least ways to do something about making it available and support by everybody, even the local residents. Because again, it's the noise situation and the playing of loud music that would annoy anybody. You know, at the end... Please... I don't know how loud the music is played, but at the end of the day, it needs to go back to the drawing board. Don't knock it on the head totally, but let's go and take it back and think about it and come up with something else or similar that's going to be supported by everybody. The one thing I would never do is support something where the people who live next to it have objected. Because I wouldn't want to live there either if I objected to that point. So at the end of the day, go back to the drawing board and see if we can come up with something that's permissible by everybody. Everybody's suited with it, if it's possible. Thank you.
I don't believe you'll oversuit everybody, but I think if we can get a good majority of it, I think we'll be happy with that. So Councillor Hall next, then Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I move that we move this to a deferral and we start a conversation around some of the things that Matthias mentioned, particularly looking at if there is any additional acoustic barrier protection, and the times. The times is something that we're going to have to speak about. But Anthony mentioned something about the extension. Yeah. That was the one. Yeah, I'm moving deferral. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We've had a few of these over years, and I think the correct decision, I believe, today is to defer this, because I do think licensees need to talk to the surrounding public. Get their thoughts, what's acceptable, what's not, and let's forget we had a licensing authority as well, which they could help and they could impose conditions as well. But I'll quite gladly second this for deferment. All those in favour of deferment, please show.
7, 4. Oh, sorry. That was 8-4.
Against?
You're abstaining.
Abstention.
It's deferred.
Page 67, toss a coin, Penistone Road, New Mill, Holmfirth.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Fazana Tabessa. I'm the case officer for this application. The application relates to the premises accommodating a public house known as Toss a Coin at the junction of Penistone Road and Gatefoot Lane, which is here, with the nearest residential properties northwest of the site. The application site benefits from an existing enclosed car park, which is accessed from Gatefoot Lane, as shown on this photo. The building has previously been extended with the addition of single-storey extensions to the side here and to the rear, as can be seen on these photos, these extensions to the rear. The application seeks permission for the erection of a two-storey rear extension. This is shown to be in a linear form and will project out approximately 17 metres in length. It will provide a wedding suite at ground floor and 5 guest bedrooms at first floor. The extension is designed and will be sited so it is accessed internally from the car park and having its main openings onto the external amenity area. These are the proposed elevations. Okay. So on this elevation, this will be facing the external amenity area away from the car park. This elevation will be facing the car park. This is the entrance to the extension. The proposals will also provide an additional overspill car park as shown on this block plan here. That's the overspill car park here, and this is the existing car park. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Nigel Patrick, who asked for members to consider the impact on the neighbouring residents on the opposite side of the road, particularly from noise and road safety. One representation is received. The site lies in the Greenbelt. As such, the cumulative impact of the existing extensions together with the proposals would result in disproportionate emissions over and above the original building and constitutes inappropriate development. Such development should not be approved unless it can be demonstrated there are very special circumstances to clearly outweigh the harm caused. Members have a full detailed report and visited the site this morning, so if I can briefly refer to the very special circumstances put forward by the applicant. These are: there is a lack of small venues in the area, premises have been taken over by a new landlord following a flurry of short-lived tenants who have failed to make the business a success. There has been a number of market trends contributing to many pub closures. The provision of additional services is required to support and run alongside the current business. The site benefits from a large car park. It would support rural economy and local employment, potentially prevent the closure of another community facility. In summary, officers are of the opinion very special circumstances have been demonstrated to outweigh the harm by the definition and to the openness of the Greenbelt as set out in full in the committee report, and the proposals would accord with a number of local plan policies and guidance in the MPPF. Turning to the impact on the amenities of the neighbouring properties, it is considered the extension is appropriately designed, sited away from the nearest residential properties. Furthermore, the applicant is agreeable to restricting the hours of use as proposed for the proposed venue. This can be conditioned. However, officers consider these may be too restrictive and to allow some flexibility for the business for it to succeed. It is proposed to restrict the hours as set out in the committee update should members be minded to approve. These have been agreed by Environmental Health. I will now pass you on to my colleague, the Highway Officer, before concluding.
Through you, Chair. Jamie Turner, Highways Development Management.
We have one speaker, Chair. We have Paul Matthews, who's the agent.
Good afternoon, Chair, members and officers. I'm Paul Matthews, the agent who prepared this application on behalf of the applicants. Following the planning submission, one objection was received. The objection contained 5 points. Only 2 of these were considered to be material planning issues. These were highway safety, specifically parking issues, and noise from the proposed extended premises, including the hours of operation. With regards to noise, the design, internal layout and position of the proposed openings minimises the impact of associated noise from the extension. Furthermore, to ensure the noise aspect is appropriately managed, Kirklees Pollution and Noise Control Team have suggested an appropriate precondition which my clients welcome as a responsible operator. The current licensing hours are proposed to be retained. Any extended hours to these will be subject to a formal application which naturally gives the local authority control for the future, for the long term. With regards to highway safety, Kirklees Highways carried out a formal appraisal using tricks, an assessment based on the existing and proposed floor area of the premises with trip rates to determine vehicle movements and parking requirements. This calculation indicated the maximum use of the car park at the worst possible times, weekends between 1 and 2 p.m. The existing car park of 46 spaces would be 47% occupied. However, and illustrating my client's genuine willingness to work with neighbours and locals, additional parking was incorporated. An amended plan was submitted, and this indicated an additional 9 spaces to the rear of the current car park. These 9 spaces increased the car park capacity by 20%, now 55 spaces. Remember, the existing car park, without the additional 9 spaces, was accepted as safe and functional by a senior highways engineer from Kirklees Council. Kirklees Planning and other internal consultees had no objection to the proposals. The Parish Council also supported the original submission. The application, after a detailed assessment, has been recommended for approval. I respectfully ask for members to support the professional judgment of this application
30 seconds.
And grant conditional approval. This proposed diversification is a genuine requirement to ensure this rural pub restaurant business doesn't become yet another statistic resulting in the loss of rural jobs. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than willing to answer them, subject to the Chair's approval. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, it's a bit of a fine balance, this one for me, because pubs and the leisure industry are always looking for different ways to increase footfall and revenue, and I totally get that. But I think the special reasons that's been submitted for me outweigh the harm in terms of lack of small venues, and there is a large car parking facility as well. I am happy to support the officer recommendation and move it. Thank you.
Formally seconding that. Yes. Any further speakers?
Yes, I'd like to just make a comment. I think before we can determine if the car park is adequate, I think we need to know what the capacity is for the maximum number of guests in the wedding suite, please.
Through you, Chair. It's anticipated that the maximum capacity of guests would be 50 based on the size of the extension proposed. That's 50 guests.
That makes it a lot easier to understand this. Thank you.
No further. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favour, please show.
Application is approved.
Page 81, 125 Huddersfield Road, Meltham.
Thank you, Chair. The application currently accommodates a detached bungalow set back into the site as shown on this plan. I'll just run through a number of photos to give some context of the site and its immediate neighbours. So this is the existing bungalow on the site. As you can see from this photo, this is the outbuilding for the property on the west, known as Laurel Bank, and this is the property. You can see the roof of the neighbouring property, Laurel Bank. This is to the east, a pair of semi-detached dwellings. From this you can see the relationship currently with the bungalow. This is another photo taken from the site, looking further back at the property at Laurel Bank. And this is looking from the rear of the application site straight onto the property to the west, Laurel Bank, which has its principal elevation facing the application site. On this photo, you can also see the detached garage outbuilding for Laurel Bank. This is looking east towards 127 from the application site, the rear of the application site. So this property is 127. It has a obscure glazed window at first floor. Again, this is a view of 127, the side of the 127. So the permission is sought to demolish the existing bungalow and to replace it with a pair of two detached two-storey dwellings. This site block plan shows a footprint of the proposed dwellings. This element will be two-storey with rooms in the roof space, and this element here will be single-storey. It will be set back further into the site to sit flush with number 127, as can be seen here. This is a plan showing the proposed accommodation in the roof space. One of the plots will have dormers to the rear and the other one a study. Members carried out a site visit this morning and visited the site from Laurel Bank as shown on the photos that have just been presented. The application is brought to committee at the request of Councillor Charles Greaves. Several representations have been received, including the one reported in the update. The principle of demolition and erection of a pair of dwellings is acceptable on this unallocated site and considered not to detract from the characteristics of the adjacent health and conservation area, as the density and visual scale would be similar to the dwellings east of the site. This plan shows the elevations as proposed. In terms of visual amenity, officers are of the opinion the proposed design siting would reflect the character of the area, and in terms of residential amenity, it is considered the proposals would not adversely compromise the amenity of both neighbouring sites. The proposals would provide adequate parking, turnaround areas on site, and as such, officers support the proposals and request the application be delegated for approval to the Head of Development and Master Planning to complete the conditions, including those set out in the report, and issue the decision. Thank you, Chair.
We have three speakers. First we have is Barry Bennett, who objects.
Good afternoon. My name is Barry Bennett, and I make apologies for my son, whose house it is, as he's due to work pressures he couldn't attend. And this is regarding the proposed demolition of 125 Huddersfield Road and the building of two semi-detached houses. With bringing the plot backwards to be level with 127 will take the rear extension much further back into the garden, and looking at the plans, the extension is very much higher than the garage at 127, and this will take away the sunshine from the patio that is currently enjoyed. The new property will also be significantly higher, and this will take away the natural light we have to the kitchen, bathroom, hallway and landing windows. Also, the new semi-detached houses will be built in stone, which is completely out of keeping with the row of semis down Huddersfield Road, which are brick construction, and will tower over the road, being almost 3 stories high. Another worry we have is that the parking at the front of the proposed property is for 5 cars, which doesn't seem feasible as it's quite a narrow plot, which will make turning difficult on the driveway. This, I believe, will result in more cars reversing onto a fast, dangerous road, and probably cars will end up being parked on the road or pavement outside the plot, creating a blind spot for residents trying to get out onto the road. This will also be the case when these houses are visitors, and will park up and down the road again, creating problems for residents getting on and off their driveways. Also, heavy vehicles parked on the road during construction and demolition. The hard standing area is mentioned for wheelie bins, which we're not sure which side of the wall these would be stored, but if on the pavement, this would be totally out of keeping with the rest of Huddersfield Road and an eyesore. There is a privacy screen of conifers running the full length of the garden between ourselves and 125, and these must not be removed or cut down, as it was a condition of the sale of the land from 127 by title that the trees need to be kept in good condition at a manageable height and no lower than 5 foot to ensure privacy. Nextly, the drainage system is also a worry with the extra stress that 30 seconds. be put under. The two houses could have a possible 10 extra people using the system. We have had blockages downstream over the years, unblocked by neighbours, so that all the extra toilets and appliances going into the system could cause a further problem. This 4-inch sewer, which is running behind the houses, will now run directly onto the new house extension should it be built, and needs to be adequately protected.
Thank you. Your time's up. Thank you.
Richard, have we something?
Yes, we have. We've got Lucy Robertshaw. Just go back to your seat now. Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yes, please. Good afternoon. My family and I live at Laurel Bank, the property to the western boundary of the application site. It's our submission that the proposed development is too big, too overbearing, and not in keeping with the street scene. It is set back into the plot to a position which causes unacceptable impact on residential amenity and a significant loss of light for both neighbouring properties. All of the semi-detached dwellings further down Huddersfield Road are two-storey matching pairs of equal height with a low-pitch hipped roof. This development is for two three-storey dwellings of unequal height and with a gable roof, so not sympathetic to the adjacent buildings in any way. To squeeze these 2, 3, 4-bedroom dwellings onto the plot, the developer has had to almost triple the height and double the footprint of the original bungalow, extending the height to accommodate a third floor in the roof space. The sheer size of this development will be overbearing on neighbours on both sides, blocking daylight and causing significant overshadowing. Although modifications have been made to improve privacy where there was unacceptable overlooking, the main objections to the overall size and scale still remain. To avoid this development dominating the street scene, the conservation officer suggested that the dwellings be set back further from the road, moving it back in the plot by an additional 1.8 metres. The revised plans have therefore not addressed the problem. In fact, they have made it considerably worse. As you can see from the document provided and from today's site visit, the impact on visual amenity from our house, Laurel Bank, is massive. The gable end of the proposed three-storey property totally dominates the outlook from our principal elevation. Laurel Bank was built by the Doctor of Meltham in 1873, almost 150 years ago. It does not face the road, but was built facing east over the proposed development site. The house is a non-designated heritage asset situated within Meltham Conservation Area, and as such, the impact of developments on conservation area must be given serious consideration. The Conservation Officer's suggestion did not take into account the orientation of our house and the visual impact these revised plans would have. We have tried several times to contact the Conservation Officer
30 seconds.
To raise our concerns, but have had no response at all. The ideal solution for both neighbours would be to replace this oversized development with one of a similar style, height and scale to the others along Huddersfield Road, and to position it on the existing footprint of the bungalow. We therefore appeal to the committee to either reject this application outright or defer it for further review and modification. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more speaker, and that's Nick Willock, who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chair, members. We understand the two neighbouring properties may be quite naturally anxious about the changes brought about by new development, and the applicant, through me, has very carefully considered issues of amenity when the plans were drawn up. Remembering that loss of view is not a material planning consideration, referring to the issues of outlook from Laurel Bank and the cross-section drawing that you've got in front of you, officers have visited the site and have commented that the outlook from Laurel Bank is already obstructed to some extent by their own detached outbuildings situated at the application boundary. However, there are three key additional planning issues to assess here today, in my opinion. Number one, the distance between Laurel Bank and the new plots, confirmed as being 13 to 14 metres, which exceeds the 12-metre habitable room to non-habitable room standard referred to in the former UDP plan. Number two, the height differences between the ridge heights, which confirmed that Laurel Bank is over 4 metres or 13 feet higher than the ridge height of the nearest proposed plot, with ground levels up to 1.5 metres higher. That's 5 feet. And number three, whether the side elevation of the plot facing Laurel Bank causes overlooking issues. It doesn't, because the stairwell and WC windows are obscure glazed, and a 2 metre high close boarded fence is also proposed. We can't therefore see how it could be reasonably concluded the new plots, lower at the ridge height and ground levels, not overlooking and exceeding recognised minimum distance standards, can have any form of oppressive impact on the outlook of Laurel Bank. If it was the other way round and Laurel Bank was the property being built, I could understand that. For the lower property, number 127, you'll see from the cross-section that the two plots are stepped down the slope to respect this property. The positioning of the plot nearest 127 aligns with the front and rear elevations so that there is no overshadowing effect, and we have set in the rear single-storey extension, which is allowable under policy anyway, from the boundary in order to safeguard amenity even further. As such, we consider that the relationship between the proposed development, Laurel Bank
30 seconds.
and number 127 will not lead to any discernible loss of natural light, privacy or outlook. We've fully cooperated with the Council over the course of this application, responding positively to comments made by Conservation and Design, Highways, the case officer and neighbours, and we'd ask for members to support the application and thank you for listening to the applicant's case today.
Thank you. Members. Councillor Hall.
I personally can't see how wrong with this. I think if this were to be refused, I think it would be one at appeal. And I think one thing what Nick said, and it's absolutely spot on. If it were the other way around and it were Laurel Bank that were being discussed to be built, refuse it, overbearing, spoiling street scene, everything else with this as it is, there's no further from the truth, so I would accept and move officer's recommendation.
Any further submissions? Anybody? Councillor Munro.
I'm just looking at the plan from 125 Huddersfield Road, and the dotted blue line shows where the development proposed at 125 will extend to at the back, and I think that will overshadow number 123 and take the light because they face north at the back. So for me, there is an issue there, and that would make me more inclined to actually not accept this proposal in its current format.
Councillor Ola.
Just to really support and second Steve, I think Steve moved it for officer recommendation. I'm happy to second that. Thank you.
Any further submissions? No? I'll put it then. It's been moved and seconded. Officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 4.
Against?
1 against.
Thank you.
Application's approved.
That concludes the meeting. Thank you very much for your attendance.